Welcome back to Controlling Interest, PoliSports Tea Leaves. I'm your host, Political Leo. This is a mini-series, The Rise of the Sports Power Couple. And today we go deeper. Episode 2, we're going to talk a little more about the psychology of professional jealousy. When she signs the deal, when she lifts the trophy, when the cameras follow her, why does he feel smaller? This isn't about love. This is about identity. We celebrate her ascension. We applaud the endorsement. We repost the highlight. We call it progress. But privately, someone is recalibrating. And that recalibration is rarely discussed. Professional jealousy in power couples isn't pettiness. It isn't bitterness. And it's not always insecurity. It's identity disrupted under public comparison. Let me say that again. Professional jealousy in power couples isn't about love. It's about identity disruption. When one partner ascends rapidly, the other can experience a subconscious status threat that feels like personal erosion. Not because they don't care, but because they were never prepared for what happens when a hierarchy shifts. And in sports, hierarchy is everything. We are living in a moment that didn't exist a decade ago. The economic landscape of athletics has shifted, and it has shifted fast. With NIL policy changes through the NCAA, college athletes were given the right to monetize their name, image, and likeness. And women move quickly. In the NIL era, young women are earning millions, not after retirement, not at the professional peak, but while still in school. That's new. At the same time, social media has removed the traditional gatekeeper. Athletes no longer wait for network deals or lead marketing departments to define their visibility. They build their own pipeline, direct to brand relationships, personal partnerships, audience ownership. A female athlete today can move product from her phone. She can negotiate contracts from her inbox. She can build a media presence independent of team performance. And at the professional level, the growth is measurable. The WNBA has experienced surging media coverage, increased broadcast visibility, and expanding sponsorship attention. This isn't symbolic growth, it's economic acceleration. For the first time in modern athletics, young women are out-earning male peers, out-branding male peers, out-engaging male peers digitally. That is historically new. And history does not update overnight. Cultural scripts about who leads, who provides, who holds visibility, who anchors status, those scripts were written over generations. But the money moved in 5 years. And when economic shifts faster than identity, something destabilizes. So the real question becomes, what happens inside the human mind when the hierarchy it was trained to expect suddenly changes? This is where we move from culture to cognition. This is a concept in social psychology called status theory threat. It argues that when a person perceives their social rank is being challenged, especially in a public way, the body reacts before the ego does. Cortisol increases. Defense cognition activates. Comparison loops intensify. And here's the important part. This is not conscious, it's primal. Human beings evolved in dominant hierarchy. Status once determined survival, protection, access, mating, belonging. So when the brain perceives rank disruption, it doesn't interpret it as, oh, my partner is thriving. It interprets it as instability. And instability triggers defense. Now let's make this real inside the context of sports power couples. There are 3 internal shifts that often occur. Role displacement. For years, maybe for his entire life, he believed, I'm the star. Not necessarily in arrogance, but in expectation. Athletic culture reinforces it. Family systems reinforce it. Even media framing reinforces it. But now, he's adjacent to the star. He's introduced as her partner, her husband, her boyfriend. That subtle shift from primary to adjacent can feel seismic internally. Even if he smiles publicly, even if he supports her verbally, role displacement challenges identity architect. B. Public comparison trauma. We cannot ignore the social media era. In previous generations, status shifts were private. Now, comments rank couples. Followers count are visible. Engagement becomes hierarchy. Every post becomes a scoreboard. Who has more endorsements? Who has more headlines? Who trends? Who gets the featured spread? And the nervous system reads this as loss of dominance. And it doesn't matter that they share a home. The brain sees public rankings, and public rankings triggers comparison stress. And that stress compounds quietly. Masculinity conditioning. See, this is the deepest layer. Many men are socialized directly or indirectly to equate provision equals value, dominance equals respect, and visibility equals importance. Not because they choose that script, because they inherit it. So when she outpaces him publicly, financially, socially, symbolically, his brain may interpret that as erosion, not partnership, not shared success. Erosion, even if he loves her, even if he's proud of her, even if he intellectually supports her equality. Many men were socialized directly or indirectly to equate provision equal value, dominance equal respect, visibility equal importance. Not because they chose that script, but because they inherited it. So when she outpaces him publicly, financially, socially, symbolically, his brain may interpret that as erosion, not partnership, not shared success. Erosion, even if he loves her, even if he's proud of her, even if he intellectually supports equality. Love does not cancel conditioning, and conditioning doesn't just disappear just because culture evolved. If anything, rapid cultural evolution exposes where conditioning still lives. So if this reaction is biological, psychological, and socially conditioned, the next question is this: who actually holds power when the money shifts? Professional jealousy isn't random. It's not mood, it's not personality, it's not he's insecure. It's about perceived power law. And power in relationships operate on multiple levels. Let's break it down. Economic power. Now who signs the larger check? Who negotiates the endorsement? Who becomes the primary financial driver? Historically, economic leverage shapes relational hierarchy. When that shifts, the power dynamic shifts, whether anyone says it out loud or not. Then there's narrative power. Who does media center? Who gets the feature story? Who becomes the headline? Visibility is influence, and influence alters internal position. If she becomes the narrative anchor and he becomes the supporting character, that reframes identity, publicly and privately. Symbolic power. Who is framed as the future? Who represents cultural momentum? Who becomes aspirational? Symbolic power is often stronger than financial power. It determines who is seen as ascending and who is stabilizing. And in elite sports culture, ascension is everything. Now here's the part we can't ignore. When one partner gains the upper hand economically and symbolically, the dynamic doesn't just affect him, it affects her too. Because power changes behavior sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically. There's a question that often sits underneath these shifts. When she rises, does she protect the relationship? Or does she weaponize the power? Does she consciously or unconsciously emasculate? Does she become dismissive, controlling, less patient, more dominant in tone? This is uncomfortable to discuss, but it matters because sometimes what feels like male jealousy is actually relational imbalance triggered by behavior change. If she grew up watching instability, if she learned that control equals safety, if her childhood experience taught her that power must be guarded, then sudden economic dominance may activate her own survival patterns. She may overcorrect, overassert, overmanage. Not because she hates him, but because she doesn't trust stability. And now she finally has leverage. Power reveals people for both parties. So while he may feel replaceable, secondary, interchangeable, even if that's not objectively true, she may feel protective of her rise, hyper-awareness of vulnerability, and unwilling to shrink. Power anxiety triggers performance anxiety, and performance anxiety triggers relational tension. If he feels diminished, he may overcompensate competitively. If she feels newly empowered, she may overcompensate assertively. And now you don't have a villain, you have escalation. Because the truth is, when hierarchy shifts, both nervous systems react. And if neither partner has consciously defined what shared power looks like, the relationship becomes a silent negotiation for control. And when that silent negotiation spills into public view, it stops being personal. It becomes brand risk. Now let's talk about what this looks like behind closed doors. Because professional jealousy rarely explodes first. It erodes. It doesn't start loud. It starts quiet. Jealousy, when left unexamined, shows up in small behavior shifts, micro withdrawals of affection, less enthusiasm when she shares good news, delayed responses to celebration, subtle competitive behavior, suddenly tracking who trained longer, who sacrificed more, who deserves more recognition, achievement minimization. That deal isn't that big, it's just hype. Let's see how long it lasts. Emotional distancing, more time alone, more time on the phone, less eye contact, less softening. And here's what makes it complicated. It rarely presents itself as jealousy. Professional jealousy often disguises itself as something more socially acceptable. You've changed. You're too busy. I don't like the attention. Those statements feel relational, but the root is often identity instability. When her public visibility increases, his internal recalibration intensifies. The more public her rise, the more private his psychological adjustment must become. And most people don't have the language for that adjustment. So instead of renegotiating identity consciously, they react emotionally. He may withdraw. She may interpret withdrawal as lack of support. She may push harder. He may retreat further. And now you have tension without clarity because no one is naming the real issue. No one is saying, this isn't about your success. This is about how your success makes me question myself. Most couples never consciously renegotiate power when ascension happens. They just react. And reaction over time becomes resentment. Not because love disappeared, but because identity was shaken and neither partner knew how to stabilize it. So if resentment is the quiet cause, the final question becomes this. Are we emotionally equipped to build power without breaking partnership? Now let's not end this in diagnosis. Let's talk about evolution. Because professional jealousy is not inevitable collapse. It's a crossroad. There are couples, power couples, who navigate ascension without implosion. And when you study them closely, they tend to do three things differently. 1, they separate identity from income. In secure power pairing, self-worth is not tied to earning. Not his, not hers. Income becomes a resource, not a ranking system. Visibility becomes opportunity, not hierarchy. When identity is anchored intentionally in character, in contribution, in personal purpose, financial fluctuation doesn't destabilize the relationship because no one's value is measured by the check. That separation is critical. Without it, every contract negotiation becomes a referendum on masculinity or dominance or relevance. Secure couples refuse that equation. Number 2, they redefine dominance as partnership. Dominance is an old model. It's clean, it's clear, it's simple, but it's also fragile. Secure couples replace dominance with partnership. Power is shared, not hoarded. Influence is collaborative, not competitive. They understand something essential. If one wins, the household wins. Not symbolically, structurally. There is no scoreboard inside the relationship. There's a strategy, there's support, there's intentional alignment, and that requires ego maturity because shared power demands flexibility. It demands the ability to say, today you lead, today I support, and not feel diminished in either role. 3, they acknowledge jealousy without shame. This may be the most important piece. Jealousy isn't evil, it's information. It tells you where insecurity lives. It tells you where identity is fragile. It tells you where conditioning hasn't been examined. Secure couples don't pretend jealousy doesn't exist. They name it, they discuss it, they process it before it calcifies into resentment. Because unexamined jealousy becomes sabotage. But acknowledged jealousy becomes growth, and that reframes the entire narrative. Professional jealousy is not proof of failure, it's proof that adaptation is required. The culture evolved, the money evolved, the visibility evolved, so the psychology must evolve too. And the couples who understand that, they don't collapse under ascension, they expand with it. But the real question is bigger than individual couples. Are we as a culture ready for this level of shared power? So what happened next? Let's read the tea leaves. If we do nothing, if we don't teach emotional literacy, real emotional literacy, not social media therapy language, if we don't allow masculinity to evolve beyond provisions and dominance, if we don't teach power, flexibility inside relationships, then we will see predictable outcomes. More public fractures, more brand instability, more visible tension between high-performing couples, more performance decline tied to relational stress that never gets named. Because unresolved identity threat does not stay contained. It leaks into interviews, into body language, into game performance, into contract negotiations. And in the age of cameras everywhere, nothing leaks quietly anymore. But if we do evolve, if athletes begin developing psychological tools at the same level they develop physical skills, if couples consciously define shared power before money shifts, if men are given the language for recalibration, and women are given a framework for wielding power without weaponizing it, then we could witness something different. The rise of psychologically intelligent power couples. Athletes modeling emotional maturity in real time, shared visibility without identity collapse. That is possible, but it is not automatic. Because her ascension doesn't have to mean his erosion. But without psychological growth, it often feels that way. And that is the tea leaf. This entire series asks one question. Who truly holds controlling interest in power shift? Tonight we've learned that it's not the contract, it's not endorsement, and it's not the spotlight. It's the psychology. At Controlling Interest PoliSports Tea Leaves, we don't react to the headline. We study patterns, we analyze power, we read the subtle shifts before they become public outcomes. Because when you learn to read the tea leaves, you are never surprised by the fraction. You see it coming. And that awareness, that's leverage. Until next time, I'm Political Leal. And this has been Controlling Interest, PoliSports Tea Leaves. Stay observant, stay analytical, and keep reading the tea leaves so you are never surprised by the outcome.